בשם השם נעשה ונצליח, שיעור תורה, ברוכים הבאים. We're back, ברוך השם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה, ברוך השם. And we're back to our series of Torah foundations. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema. That's unfortunately a little bit extensive. A lot of people need Refuah Shlema, Baruch Hashem. We have the shiurim that could go to their merit and give them Refuah Shlema. BeEzrat HaShem Refuah Shlema for Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Sarah bat Levana, Ovadia ben Levana, Yosef ben Levana, Avi Mori David ben Esriah, Imi Morati Doris bat Jorah, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahis that continue to support the organization, continue to help us do all the good things that we're doing, Baruch Hashem. Anyone that wants to fulfill the Mitzvot of Purim with us to help us give money to the poor, we're doing a campaign. Some of you, Baruch Hashem, are aware of it and have already contributed. Some of you have not. The Machatzit HaShekel and the Matanot LaEvyonim are two of the most important mitzvot of Purim, aside from reading the Megillah. A lot of people think that the Mishloach Manot is something they could spend thousands of dollars on, but the Matanot LaEvyonim and the Machatzit HaShekel, maybe they don't have to. It's quite the opposite. In fact, the Rambam writes that before any Jewish holiday, a person must give tzedakah. And needless to say, in a holiday like this, where the core mitzvah of the holiday is to give tzedakah. So the Machatzit HaShekel is higher than it's been ever, simply because the price of silver is what it's based on. It's a third of an ounce, which the price is very volatile. It's been very volatile for the last several weeks. So when we priced it, when we started the campaign a couple of weeks ago, silver was at around $82 an ounce. I think now it's slightly a little higher. It went down below it. So we're figuring that based on the $82 an ounce, Machatzit HaShekel is $27 per person. So that means that if there is two parents and 4 kids, even if the kids are all babies, you still have to give Machatzit HaShekel for each one. That means 6 times 27. And if you want to do the Sgula, which is 3 times, then just triple that. And of course, the Matanot LaEvyonim is for adults, anyone that's above 13 years old for males and 12-year-old for females. You have to give Matanot LaEvyonim to give money for food for 2 poor people, which is at least $50 here in the West per person, which means, each adult has to give 50 times 2, so that's $100. That's considered Matanot LaEvyonim. If you live in one of the third world countries it's much cheaper over there, then by all means, you could calculate it based on where you are. But in most of the world, especially those that are watching me, whether you're living in Israel or you're living in the United States or in Canada or Australia or England or wherever you are in the world, Baruch Hashem, then the $50 is more or less sufficient to give per poor person. Now again, if a person is financially restrained, they don't have even money to eat, and they themselves are the Evyon, then obviously they do not have to give what they don't have. But those of us that have, Baruch Hashem, have to give, including myself. And if you look at the campaign, Baruch Hashem, I merited to be the first one to give for the campaign, even though I run the organization and even though I could do a lot of different things and give myself a lot of different excuses. You'll see that, Baruch Hashem, like every year we give. And we're also going to give other than the organization that we trust the most, BeEzrat HaShem, Baruch Hashem. And it was expensive. It was expensive for everybody, but it is what it is. We're celebrating the fact that we have merited to be the givers and not the takers, Baruch Hashem. So, with that being said, we also want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for Baruch Hashem having a successful surgery, and Baruch Hashem, hopefully this is the last one. It was not so simple, it was very painful, but Baruch Hashem, we're here. And the title of today's shiur is also the reason why I'm giving this shiur, which is, if you can, you must. What does it mean, if you can, you must? What does it mean? Rabbeinu Bachyei has this Chovot LaEvyonim inspecting our heart, investigating our heart, and really measuring our heart in comparison to what we're obligated. Now, it would seem, as we've seen many, many other times throughout the years, the last 10 years of giving shiurim, that the sages, no matter when they spoke, whether it's 1,000 years ago or it's 100 years ago, or anywhere in between, they were always speaking to us today. They're speaking to our generation. And it seems like Rabbeinu Bachyei is speaking prophetically, taking a shot at the leadership, not only of his generation, but speaking prophetically at our generation, the leadership of today. Why is this happening? Many times we hear of new lenient opinions that have become the new standard in certain communities, either as a result of misunderstandings or misguidance. Now, don't get me wrong, leniency is not necessarily always a bad thing. Chazal always looks for the ways to make it easier for Am Yisrael to fulfill the mitzvot. But a leniency has to follow halacha. A leniency cannot follow feelings. A leniency cannot follow popularity. And here the Rav explains through a story of how the servant of the king will have to answer for his performance after the king evaluates the servant's abilities and choices. And this Mussar is going to help us understand which path we should take in our lives and really reconsider who we listen to and who we don't. Recently, one of our dear students, nice family that Baruch HaShem has really picked up their chizuk, their yirat shamayim, since they've started watching our shulim over the past few years. And they asked me, as they always do, they asked me different questions, and they asked me, they have a Machatzit HaShekel. They saw what our campaign has, where the Machatzit HaShekel is $27 per person, the Matanot LaEvyonim is $50 per evyon, per poor person, which means each person has to give $100. And then they showed me what they have in their community. And they're hard for me to call their rabbi a rabbi because he dances with his wife in public. So this is obviously a problematic person, to say the least. But nonetheless, this guy publicizes a campaign for the entire community to fulfill the mitzvot of Purim with $50 per family. That's it. You fulfill Machatzit HaShekel, you fulfill Matanot LaEvyonim. I wouldn't be surprised if you're also fulfilling the mitzvot of Pesach too with it. But $50. And she said, is this possible? Is this true? I'm like, I don't know. What can you buy with $50? What can you buy with $50? Can you buy a third of an ounce of silver for 6 people that are in your family? If you do 6 times 27, I'm not exactly the greatest mathematician in the world, but I'm also pretty good at it. I mean, 6 times 27 is not $50. It's quite a bit more. It's almost 4 times it. Now, if you calculate Matanot LaEvyonim, you're telling me that with $50, you can feed, if there's 6 adults in the household, because all the kids are older, each one has to give 2 Matanot LaEvyonim. So you're telling me that with $50, you could feed 12 families? If you can, please let me know where you shop. Because even non-kosher McDonald's is more expensive than that. Now, of course, they said, yeah, we knew there was something wrong with it, but, we always like to ask, and Baruch Hashem, they do. The question is, why didn't their rabbi ask before he publicized such stupidity? The reason is because he wants to be lenient, because he doesn't believe that the Jewish people have the capability of fulfilling the mitzvot. For any of you that have watched my personal story, I take an issue with such rabbis that take it upon themselves to decide what the holy Jewish people can and can't do, and simply decide for them that they can't do it. Meaning, the rabbi can do it, but you, since you grew up secular, since you grew up reform, since you grew up modern, since you grew up in a different community, since you're not Ashkenazi enough or you're not Sephardi enough, you can't do it. I think that there is very few things that show greater arrogance than that, and the opposite of Ahavat Israel. They choose not to tell you that you're not allowed to drive on Shabbat because they assume that if you knew that you're not allowed to drive on Shabbat, you simply will make the wrong choice and just not stop. They assume that you cannot handle a kosher business, and therefore they don't tell you that your business of cash advance or any other form of stealing that people are doing today is forbidden according to the Torah. They'll tell you, now listen, it's not the best hashkafa, but it's allowed. What can we do? Who says it's allowed? Show me one tshuva that shows it's allowed. They assume that if your wife found out that the wig she's wearing is provocative and therefore forbidden according to the Torah, she would make the wrong choice and continue wearing it despite the fact that it's forbidden. So they don't tell you. These types of rabbis are who the Chovot and LaEvyonim is talking about. And he says as follows. I asked one of those who are thought to be Torah scholars. Here he's obviously saying it in a certain way, where this is a person that is known as a Torah scholar. He's not saying that this person's a heretic, chas v'shalom. He's not saying that this person is a bad person. He's saying this is a Torah leader in our generation. He didn't say the name. And don't think for a moment that the sages do not mention names, for good or for bad, because they do. If you look at the Rav Saadia Gaon from 1100 years ago, one of the translators to one of his books says that all of the books the Rav Saadia Gaon wrote, whether it is the book that talks about the opinions and the knowledge, disproving any form of heresy that you could possibly imagine, whether it's the Christian heresy, the Islam heresy, atheist heresy, Darwinism, all of the different things, 1100 years ago. Or it's the books that were commentary on the Torah, or it's even the dictionary of what the Sfat HaKodesh, the holy language words, actually mean. Every one of his books was polemical, meaning it was against someone. It was exposing someone that said the opposite of what the Torah says. And there's a whole field of study of polemical work that exists in the world, but unfortunately, when it comes to the Torah, people have somehow forgotten that the biggest body of work that is considered polemical in the literature world comes from the Jewish Chachamim, where they specifically mention a name of a person or a group and their wrongdoings, and they expose them, and they disprove them, and they fight against them. This is forever, it's just the beginning of time till today. But sometimes there's no need to mention the name, like here. Perhaps it's because this Chacham is not doing it as something that is intentional wrongdoing, or better yet, that this is the common opinion, not only then, but unfortunately today. And he says that through his investigation of fulfilling the mitzvah of Chovot LaEvyonim and really understanding why it's not taught, why a book has not been written about the obligation we have to inspect our hearts. He asked and looked into the written Torah and found it. He asked and looked into the oral Torah and found it. Thought about it logically and rationally and found it. So then he asked one of the Torah scholars of the generation, why isn't it taught? And the answer would be familiar to you. I asked one of those who are thought to be Torah scholars some of the questions on the science of the inner life that I have shared with you here. And he answered me that relying on tradition can substitute for independent thought in all these matters. In so many words, this Chacham told them, listen, although everything that you're saying is correct, you need to inspect your heart, but perhaps you could learn it from your father, learn it from your grandfather, learn it from your community, and not necessarily have a special lecture about it. You'll just learn it from the behavior if you see how the Jewish people behave. This is similar to how the feedback was nearly 10 years ago when I first started teaching about the prohibition of wasting seed and immorality. Some of the people told me that their rabbis were frowning upon my teachings of immorality and wasting seed because they said, listen, this is not a subject we talk about. I looked, and I did not find a single gadol that agreed with them. In fact, all of Gedolei Israel, from today till the beginning of time, said what I said. Not because I made it up, because I was repeating their words. Whether it's the forefather of American Judaism and Lakewood, Rav Aaron Kotler, who famously said, Chas v'shalom, that we are, embarrassed to teach the laws of morality and teachings of, this specific subject of Tikkun HaBrit in public when people are making sins in public without shame. And of course, everyone that has watched my film, Tikkun HaBrit, or many lectures that we've done over the years, sees that there's literally countless sources of Chachamim. But 10 years ago, when I started teaching it in the English language, I was alone in the world. Certainly you could find some of it in Hebrew, but in English, for nearly 8 or 9 years, 99.9% of all the lectures you would find online about the topic were for me, which on one hand is great. Baruch HaShem, we have lots of merits. We've helped a lot of people. On the other hand, I didn't really take much pride in it because it made me feel horrible for the generation that is relying only on somebody like me rather than all of the other big rabbis that are out there. Baruch Hashem, in the last year, it seems like this issue, this reluctance to teach this subject has somehow become more permissible. They still don't teach it like the sages teach it. Everything is in a much softer approach, but nonetheless, it's progress. Perhaps we've softened the field a little bit over the years, and people realize that it's actually helping many people. But nonetheless, Rabbeinu Bachyei went to one of the Chachamim of the generation and asked them, why are you not teaching a shiur just about Chovot LaEvyonim? Why are you not writing, or your grandfather, or somebody writing a book about Chovot LaEvyonim? And he says perhaps it's not necessary because people could just learn from their community, learn from their parents. What was the Chovot LaEvyonim's reply? He says, my answer to him was that this is acceptable only in the case of women, children, and uneducated men who, because of limited perception and comprehension, cannot reason on their own. But whoever has the intellectual capacity to verify what he receives from tradition, and yet is prevented from doing so by his own laziness, or because he takes lightly God's commandments and Torah, he will be punished for this and held accountable for negligence. It always comes back to punishment. It's amazing to me how there are countless people that are considered famous rabbis from Chabad or from other places speak, not only they do not discuss punishment in an honest way, but they speak against it. But yet when you look at the words of the sages throughout all of history, you see that they speak of punishment as a foundational reason to inspire you to change. The Chovot LaEvyonim is talking about inspecting your heart in order to serve your master honestly. Meaning, this is not talking to someone that's secular and driving on Shabbat. This is talking to people that are already observing Shabbat, people that are already religious. And yet he says, the fact that you can inspect your heart and you don't, you'll get punished for it. And therefore he is dumbfounded by the fact that this Torah scholar says people should learn about this through just simply looking around and seeing how everybody else behaves. He says, no, that's not a sufficient answer. That's only sufficient for people that either are not obligated to learn, like women and children. You know, your 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 8-year-old is not obligated in mitzvot. He's not obligated to do cheshbon nefesh yet. He's still young. Your wife is not obligated to learn Torah like you do. Even though sometimes I find it that women watch my shiurim more than their husbands do sometimes, and I'm always dumbfounded with that. Why don't you bring your husband to the shiur? Your number one job should be to bring your husband to the shiur, to bring your husband to watch, and not just grow by yourself. Yeah, but I asked him and he said no. So ask again and again and again, just like you ask 500 times for a new car or jewelry or refrigerator or whatever it is that you want. You ask until you get. Same thing. Ask until you get your husband to watch every single lecture with you. Even if it's only 15 minutes a day, a half hour a day with you, you'll get somewhere. But you know that you're not obligated to learn Torah in the same level as your husband. You're obligated to bring him to learn Torah. But the Chovot LaEvyonim says that, listen, if you're a woman and you're busy with your kids, got 4, 5, 6, 10 kids, or more, BeEzrat HaShem, you don't have time to learn Torah, you don't have time to do all of the self-accounting that your husband or your kids do. They're learning in yeshiva or kollel. And guess what? HaKadosh Baruch Hu took that into consideration and says you're not obligated, so don't worry. So if you are a child or you're a woman, then the rationale of not teaching them is valid because they'll learn from what they see. They'll learn how their mom acts and they'll act accordingly. They'll learn how their father acts and they'll act accordingly. So for them, it's a valid argument. Also, there are people that are mentally deficient. It seems like everyone is crying that they have ADHD. Today, it's a plague that apparently has reached the entire planet. At least that's what people makes it seem. They don't have ADHD when it comes to making millions in business or wanting to make millions in business. They don't have ADHD when they do anything else. But when it comes to Torah, a lot of people say, listen, I can't learn Torah because I have ADHD. It's complete nonsense. But there are legitimate cases where people have mental deficiencies. And the Torah took that into consideration. If you legitimately have a mental deficiency, you're slow, you have, you're incapacitated in some way, then yes, you don't need to do the same things as someone who's not. So Rabbeinu Bachyei is saying to this Torah scholar, your decision to not teach this, your decision to not make this a priority for people to learn, is only okay with those people that are either women and children or mentally incapacitated men. But anyone else who has the intellectual capacity to double check why we do what we do, how what we're doing in our servitude of HaShem matches what is expected of us, what is obligated. Those people, they must do it. Why must they do it? Because they can. And if you can, you must. Rav Chaim Brisk, the Brisker Rabbi, the Brisker Rav, he taught that there are different types of Bitul Torah. Different types of Bitul Torah. We have Purim coming up, and the Gemara in Masechet Megillah says that in page 4a, says that in the name of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, that women are obligated in the reading of the Megillah because they too were part of the miracle. And needless to say, men are obligated to read the Megillah also when they're obligated to read the Megillah at night, the night of Purim, and to repeat it again in the day of Purim. As it says in Psalm 30, verse 13, David HaMelech says, so that my soul might sing to you and not be stilled, Hashem my God, forever will I thank you. Now the Gemara says, what if the guy is in the middle of learning Torah? I mean, learning Torah, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says that if a person is in the middle of learning Torah, but then he decides to watch the game instead, or he decides that he's going to answer one of the phone calls from his friends, and he stops his learning Torah just to chit-chat. In Shemaim, they'll punish him with feeding him gechalei retamim. What's gechalei retamim? It's hot coals that never go out. Why? You replace the words of Torah with mundane? So now, the sages are obviously questioning. If the guy's in the middle of learning Torah, does he stop learning Torah and go read the Megillah? Isn't that Bitul Torah? Conclusion is, no, it's not Bitul Torah. Even reading the Megillah is considered learning Torah. It's part of the 24 books of the Torah. But from there, the Chachamim learn that there are different levels of Bitul Torah, which means nullifying the Torah or wasting time, if you will. Instead of learning Torah, you're doing things that are not Torah. And the Rav Brisk said, certainly there's the Bitul Torah that's obvious, which is instead of learning Torah, the guy is wasting time playing with the internet or, doing all types of things that are unnecessary. Of course, if he's working, if he is, doing things to sustain his life, it's not considered Bitul Torah, so long as he lives a righteous life, righteous business, and still makes time to learn Torah. But nonetheless, there are people that, even when they have time, they don't learn Torah. That's Bitul Torah. And if they actually learn the significance of that and the punishment a person gets for Bitul Torah, they would never violate that mitzvah again. But there's also levels of Bitul Torah. And the Rabbi Brisk says there is Bitul Torah that is called mental laziness. What's mental laziness? He has been gifted the mind that is able to go into the depths of the Torah, learning Halacha, learning the depths of Halacha, learning Poskim, learning Shulchan Aruch at 4 o'clock in the morning, learning things that will occupy his mind and will force him to at the very least feel 1% of what the Brisker Rav looked like when he would learn Torah. He would literally sweat profusely and get so red to the point that when he would finish a session of learning Torah, he would put his head against something cold, some steel pole or something cold, just to cool his head from how hot it got. Now, you were gifted the mind that can analyze things, that can go into the depths of the Torah, but instead, he chose, listen, I'm going to learn Torah, but I just want stories. I want to hear nice stories of the Baba Sali. I want to hear nice Ovadia stories. The Brisker Rav says that's Bitul Torah for him. Now, of course, once in a while, everybody needs stories. It gives us chizuk, it gives us emunah. But if your entire world of Torah is just stories and you're able to do more, you have a problem. Ovadia Yosef, alav shalom, showed us an example of why Gdolei Israel were Gdolei Israel. His Gabai and other people that helped him tell endless stories about the amazing things they would see that the world didn't see. After giving 9 lectures in one day, coming back at 2 o'clock in the morning, they bring the Rav into the house and they see that after 9 lectures, I can tell you myself, after 1 lecture, I'm beat for a few hours. After 9 lectures, from morning to night, 2 o'clock in the morning, he comes home. Second he goes home, he right away, without even skipping a beat, right away he sits down, opens a book, and immediately he's in the depths of Halacha. Immediately he is deep into the Torah to the point where if someone spoke to him, he wouldn't even know. He's in a different world. Every time he would go into the car, literally, it would be the car door opens, he sits, and as he sits, he already opens a book and instantly in the depth of Torah. The Chachamim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose to be Gdolei Israel, because it's always Hashem's choice. Like somebody asked Rav Steinerman, who is going to be the leader after you? Rav Steinerman laughed. He goes, you think that a Gadol BeEzrat is an election? HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides. Rav Steinerman himself was unknown for the majority of the world most of his life until he was in his 70s, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to unveil him to the rest of the world. But the ones that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose to be Gdolei Israel, you see that they had this ability to not only learn Torah in the deepest parts of the Torah, and the most sophisticated and most difficult parts of the Torah, but they could literally do that despite all of the distractions, all of the chaos, all of the difficulties that would surround them and follow them throughout their entire lives, whether it's the difficulties in their own personal lives, monetarily, family, and so on, or it was the difficulties of the community that was brought to their attention. But instantly they could disconnect from everything and go into the depths of the Torah without skipping a beat. So if somebody is not quite a Gadol BeIsrael, but in his work, he's considered an expert. He's considered an expert lawyer. He's considered an expert doctor, architect, developer. Something that requires more than just simple manual labor. He's not just pressing the buttons on a cash register at some coffee shop. He is somebody that studied for many years to build himself this position, meaning he has the mental fortitude to achieve great things. And he already did in the business world. That person, to say that he should not be taught the obligations of Chovot and LaEvyonim is not only wrong, but it's terrible because he will be punished for it. That's what Rabbeinu Bachyei is saying. Since he has the mental fortitude, the intellectual capacity to verify what the sages said, to verify the traditions, but is only prevented from it because of his own laziness, or because he doesn't take Hashem's mitzvot seriously enough, you should tell him that he's going to be punished for it. And he gives us a story of what is this like. To what can this be compared to, says Rabbeinu Bachyei? To a servant who was ordered by the king to collect money from the servants of the kingdom and then count it, weigh it, and test it for fraud. You know, in those days, money actually had value. Not like today where everything is paper and pretty much there's printers that are working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, just to print more, and when they haven't printed enough money, they just simply decide to invent money and call it cryptocurrency. Or NFTs, or all types of other nonsense that people create just to literally invent wealth. In those days, wealth actually had something tangible behind it. The coin had to be a certain weight of gold or silver, certain size. So the king ordered his servant to count the taxes that people are paying into the kingdom. Count the coins, weigh them, make sure that they're not cheating on the weight. Test it, that it really is silver, it really is gold, and it's not some worthless metal. And the servant was capable and an expert in what the king had asked him to do. So far, so good. This servant of the king got a great job. He is the treasurer of the king. There's hardly a more important position. He's the one responsible for counting the money to make sure that the people are not cheating the king. And he happens to be an expert in identifying fraudulent money, an expert in knowing how to weigh it without necessarily having to calculate one coin at a time. There's different ways, using mathematics. He has systems in place. So he is an expert that was given a position that matches his expertise. And he gets paid accordingly. Now, what happens when somebody gets a position of power? I'll tell you. The moment somebody has a position of power or a status that appears powerful, such as a business owner, wealthy person, someone that's connected, what happens to those people? Immediately, they acquire new friends. All of a sudden, everybody wants to be their friend. Even the people that used to hate them. In fact, even the people that still hate them. But they want to be friends with them. Why? If I'm friends with him, it's like I'm friends with the king. If I'm friends with him, it's like I'm connected to his friends, to his peers. So all of a sudden, this important servant, this important treasurer of the king, has a bunch of new friends. Who are these new friends? They're the other royal servants, but they have lower positions. And these royal servants were cunning, but through flattery, they won the treasurer's confidence. And then they brought him the money that the people paid in taxes, and they assured him that this was the whole sum. Everybody paid what they owed. You don't even have to check. It's perfect weight. It's perfect quality. Why should you bother yourself counting it and measuring it? We did it for you already. You're a treasurer. You're much too important to sit here and count coin after coin. It'll take you weeks. You can go and enjoy your life with your wife, with your kids, go on vacation. And he believed them. And out of laziness, he did not bother to check the truth of their words, disregarding the king's orders. When this reached the king, and he found out that his loyal treasurer, his loyal servant, the treasurer, is really outsourcing this important task, immediately the king ordered that the money that was be brought to him. They brought all this sacks of money that was paid in taxes, and he brought the servant, the treasurer, and he asked him, how much is this way? Because that's part of his job. The servant didn't know. What do you mean you don't know? Weren't you tasked with measuring the money, which included how much everything weighs? Yes, Your Highness. So how do you not know? The king found him guilty of having disregarded his command and for having relied on the words of others in a matter which he could have verified himself, whereby even if the money was later found to be exactly as they told him, it's still a violation, meaning even if those cunning new friends that he has, even if they didn't cheat, or they found the stolen money, and thereby they made everything whole, you as the treasurer, you as the servant of the king, you're still guilty. Why? Because it was your job to count, not theirs. If he had not been an expert in the matter, he would not have been blamed for having relied on them. The reason why I tasked you with this important task is because you're an expert. You're an expert at counting money, verifying whether it's legitimate. You're an expert. That's why I put you with this job. And the fact that you gave this task to somebody else and simply relied on whatever they say, you're guilty of violating my command. And from there, says Rabbeinu Bachyei, it is the same with you. Who's you? You. You that are listening, you that are reading, you that are alive today. If this subject of the duties of the heart were something you could not fathom intellectually, such as the reasons for the commandments which have their origin in the revelation alone, then you would have a good reason for not investigating the subject. Or if you were too limited and slow of mind to understand the subject, you would not be punished for negligence. Rather, you would then be like the women and children who accept what they receive from tradition. If, however, you possess intelligence and insight, and through these faculties you are capable of verifying the fundamentals of the religion and the foundations of the commandments, which you have received from the sages in the name of the prophets, then it is your duty to use these faculties until you understand the subject, so that you are certain of it, both by tradition and by force of reasoning. And if you disregard and neglect this duty, you fall short in the fulfillment of what you owe your Creator. Here, the Chovot LaEvyonim puts everything in perspective. What are you obligated to do when it comes to fulfilling the mitzvot? Whatever you can, you must. Now, of course, every Jew is obligated to keep Shabbat. Every Jew is obligated to eat kosher. Every Jew is obligated to do business dealings in a legitimate way. Follow the law. Not just the halachic law, the law of the land. So long as the law of the land doesn't violate the Torah. Every Jew has to be moral. In fact, the Goyim also have laws from the Torah. They have the 7 Noahide laws. Morality is one of them. But further than that, to measure how much you need to push yourself to serve your master, the creator of all creations, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how much you must push yourself to pray better, to learn better, to give better, to do better, is all based on the capabilities that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you. And if you can, you must. You cannot simply rely on someone telling you, nah, you don't need to. In fact, in the world of Torah, in the yeshivot, there's a common teaching where they say that if you see that when you're learning, you see the commentary by the Tosfot, who tell you their explanation based on a Gemara, page such and such, somewhere else. Don't believe them. Why don't believe them? Chas v'shalom. To think for a moment that the sages are lying. No. Don't believe them. Rather, go check. Check the source they brought. Don't just believe someone that mentions a source, even if it's a Tosfot. Go and check that source. See that it says it there. Because not only is it going to solidify what they've said and will make a bigger impression on your heart and your soul, but also it will result in you becoming sharper and with better memory, because you have now accustomed yourself to toiling in Torah and not just simply relying on somebody else spoon-feeding you. As the sages teach, Da'at kanita ma chasarta. Da'at chasarta ma kanita. If you've acquired da'at, which is the ability to decipher right and wrong from different situations, extrapolate what would be the outcome of certain actions. In the secular world, they call it common sense, but it's quite a bit more than that. If you've acquired da'at, then you already have everything. Nothing else is more valuable than that. But if you don't have da'at, then what do you have that's of any value? Why? Because if a person understands the significance of dat, they'd realize that you need dat in order to fulfill your purpose in life, in every single aspect. Without dat, you will make wrong decisions on a regular basis. You could do all of the right things and get punished for them. Why? For example, you can say, I eat kosher. Yes, but you eat on Yom Kippur when you're supposed to fast. So yes, you ate kosher, but you ate on a fast day, you'll get punished. I do business and give charity. Yes, but your business is corrupt and is stealing from people. And therefore, both your business and your charity are against the Torah. I got married and I'm bringing kids to the world. Yes, although the Torah says, pool, boo, but you married a woman that's forbidden to you. And therefore, the woman and the kids are problematic. Meaning a person that does not have dat can do things that theoretically are right. But if they did not use the dat of the Torah, they will literally get punished for the things they do. Whether it's their business dealings, their marriage, whatever it is. Person can say, well, listen, I put on tefillin every day. Well, you have a problem. Why? You're not supposed to put on tefillin on Shabbat. Or you're not supposed to put it on at night. So, yes, putting on tefillin is a mitzvah, but at a specific time. Eating kosher is a mitzvah, but at a specific time. Getting married is a mitzvah, but to a specific person. Everything you do has to rely on this dat. And without having dat, you could literally be a criminal without even realizing how big of a criminal you are. This is also why Rav Moshe Feinstein, alav hashalom, said that the reason why drugs that are recreational, they call it, recreational drugs, meaning drugs that you don't need for survival or for cure of some ailment, drugs like marijuana or all the other hallucinogens and so on, these are forbidden from the Torah. And the reason why they're forbidden is because they alter your dat. They alter your ability to decide accordingly, and therefore you are not capable of serving your master properly. And in fact, just to have an understanding of the value of dat, for Gdolei Israel, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, alav hashalom, was one of Gdolei Israel. I had the merit to speak to his son a couple of times, Baruch HaShem. And he helped us with the whole situation. We were fighting against the community that was bringing a rabbi to their keilah. They were bringing a Christian missionary to their keilah, and Baruch Hashem, he helped us with it. But nonetheless, his father is known as a giant in Torah, a giant in Ashkafa, Machshava. In his later years, he suffered horrific pain. And pain is just a word to people that don't understand and haven't lived through it. I can assure you, when somebody says, somebody is defined as someone that suffered through pain for a period of their life, you already know this is not your regular everyday pain where they broke a finger or they broke a hand and they have pain for a few weeks. We're talking about someone that's suffering pain on a regular basis, 24 hours a day, and pain that is unimaginable for the average person. They gave the Rav some medicine to help him with the pain. He took it one time and never again. The next day when they came to the Rav to give it to him, he says, no, absolutely not. What, the Rav is not in pain? No, I'm in pain. We see the Rav is in pain, so why don't you take it? He says, no. This helps the pain, but it fogs my mind. It fogs my mind becomes foggy. And therefore I will never take it again. Meaning that someone that understands the value of da'at will prefer constant, chronic, horrific pain rather than to lose even part of the clarity of mind that allows him to have da'at. A person that wants to fulfill the word of HaShem has to understand that your obligation, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects of you, is based on the gifts that He gave you. So if you have chosen to make your path in life follow the wicked teachings of the idol worshippers, Manas, and Yoni is Talmid Muvak, is criminal Muvak, that teach you that not only are sins not relevant to anyone in this generation, but God will ask you for an apology, and you choose to rely on these lies, then not only will you be punished as an idol worshiper and heretic just like them, but you will have an additional punishment because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you the ability to rationalize that what they're saying is a lie. To learn that what they're saying is a lie. Simple ability that everyone has is to take one thing from another. Their entire premise and what they build, their entire world of lies, of saying that sins are no longer relevant and there's no punishment and all of the other nonsense they say, all of it was built on the original lie, which is that they believe God needs you. And it wasn't enough for them to say God desires good for you. They say, no, in His essence, He needs you, all types of nonsensical things. And in essence, they try to impress upon the public that they're teaching Hasidut, that is teaching Kabbalah, that is teaching about the Sfirot, but in reality, they're teaching idolatry that Rav Saadia Gaon explains by separating HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the Sfirot. This is no problem. But when you separate that His will changes based on the Sfirah, where here He needs it, here He doesn't, you have just developed multiple gods. Because His will and Him are the same thing. It doesn't change from Sfirah to Sfirah. But nonetheless, their entire world of lies is based on their false teaching that we've been fighting for at least 6 or 7 years, which is that God needs you. Initially, people thought this is not a big deal, but today, people that have followed this story and have not fallen for the trap realize how horrific this heresy has gotten to, where he literally says God needs you, God's out as an arm, all types of idolatrous beliefs, worse than Christianity. Now, if you had the test presented to you by God to listen to one of those lectures, that means that God also gave you the ability to pass that test. Meaning that whoever fell for the trap, or whoever was presented with the trap, was also given the ability to get out of it, to save themselves. HaShem does not give you a test you cannot pass, which means that all of the victims of Manis Friedman or any other type of heretic, whether it's Palmanov or the other ones, cannot claim that, we fell for it because he fooled us. No. You had been given a test after you were given the tools to pass the test. The same goes for people that believe in idolatry of Christianity or the heretical teachings of Islam. Everyone that's given those tests has the fortitude to pass those tests. And therefore, no one can go up to heaven and say, oh, I didn't know, they fooled me. No. You were given the ability to pass any test you were given. And one simple way, just to show you how a clear mind resolves this heresy in a second, without providing you the countless sources that I've brought over the years. Very simple. Of Saadia Gaon, 1100 years ago, says, for anyone that says that God needs you, or anything that he depends on it, he benefits from it, how come he waited so long to create the world and people if he needed it? Meaning, obviously God was around forever, well before he created the creation. He did not come into existence at the same time as creation did. He preceded the creation. So if he needed you and your mitzvot, why did he wait so long to create you? You see that? You see how a clear mind thinks without even providing all of the sources, which are countless, to disprove the argument. Simple. If a Kadosh Baruch Hu needed anything, why did he wait to create it? Even a microsecond. But it's not a microsecond because he was here forever. And he only created you 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 500 years ago, 5,000 years ago. How could he hold himself back from something he needed? So you see, Rabotai Karim, the deeper you look into the words of the Torah, the more you will see clearly, and in fact, the more you will see the lies that are out there. And the best part yet is that the more you look into the Torah, the more you will discover your abilities to do much more than what you're doing. This is what the Chovot and LaEvyonim is trying to impress upon us. Don't try to look for a shortcut. Don't look for only the hard way either. There are halachic permissions to do certain things that are perfectly fine, even if they're lenient. But don't look for something that's easy for you and then try to manipulate the text in order to fit your agenda. That's what heretics do. When somebody came to me trying to fight for the honor of their Rabbi, Palvanov, he said, look, when he was talking about the Kohen Gadol getting high, he was using this as a source. What are they referring by this? The article that he wrote. I said, exactly. The article is full of heresy. He comes up with his conclusions that are against the Torah not after quoting the sages, but rather after quoting heretic scientists and his own heretical opinion. That's where his conclusions come from. So the heresy of the scientists, the heresy of his own opinion is only masked by the truth of the sages. So he puts some truth around the falsehood. But you know that it's falsehood when you see clearly because you know what the conclusion is supposed to be. Rabotai Karim. The Torah is not impossible. Lo b'shamayim, it's not impossible. I'm not saying that you need to be stringent on everything. In fact, you should not be stringent on everything. There are things that you're allowed to do that are easier than things that you can do that are more difficult. And if there's an halachic permission for it, no problem. But to go and manipulate the Torah in order to serve your own personal preferences, you'll get charged for it. You'll get charged for it, you'll get punished for it. And in fact, the Chovot and LaEvyonim is telling us much more than that. Whatever you can do, you must do, which means that not only are we going to be measured, evaluated, and judged based on what we were supposed to do according to the law, but also what we were capable of doing based on the gifts that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you the ability to give a shiur, and you chose not to, you'll get charged for it. Yeah, but I don't feel well. I know you don't feel well, but you still have the ability to give a shiur. Whatever you can do, you must do. That's the path of people that want to get to Gan Eden. That's the path of people that fear HaShem. That's the path of people that love HaShem. That's the path of people that at the very least want to serve HaShem. Anything else is simply shortchanging yourself and guaranteeing yourself a very, very bitter end. Why? What do you really benefit out of the shortcut anyway? It only got you to the wrong destination. This, Rabotai Karim, is some of the things we learned, and Baruch Hashem, we merited to learn together with you. There's much more, BeEzrat Hashem, that we're going to learn together with each and every single shiur and every segment. BeEzrat Hashem, later this week, Kadosh Baruch Hu, BeEzrat Hashem, will give us the strength to do the Stump the Rabbi on Wednesday night, where you guys can ask some questions, and BeEzrat Hashem, Kadosh Baruch Hu will give us the answers. There are things that we'll go over, the parasha, also a little bit of preparation for Purim, give you a few chidushim, especially ones that have come from the new book that Rabbi Ephraim just published, Baruch Hashem. We're distributing thousands of copies of this book in Israel, just because it just literally was printed in the last 48 hours or 24 hours, and so there's not enough time to get it to the U.S. to distribute it here, but at least we'll get it out there in Israel. But of course, anyone that wants to read it, you'll be able to download it for free on our website, BeEzratHashem.org, whether the Hebrew website or the English website, it's over there. You could download it and read it over there. The goal of the book is to show you how every single verse in Megillat Esther has miracles attached to it. In the verse itself, without exception. Literally amazing. Amazing. Things that you would never even think of, where you have literally not just the open miracles that we're all aware of. If you've read the Megillah once in your life, you know the open miracles. But we're talking about endless miracles, both open and hidden, in every single verse in the Megillah. Unbelievable wisdom and siyata dishmaya that our own dear Rav had to write this book, Baruch Hashem. So anyone that wants to read it, you can download it. But BeEzrat Hashem will also go over some of it later this week when we learn the weekly parasha, as well as the a little bit for the Megillah. Thank you very much for learning with me, and BeEzrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bless each and every single one of you, that especially those that are taking this and the other shurim that we have to heart to apply to your lives, and to BeEzrat Hashem influence you in a better way. Anyone that wants to contribute and donate can donate on our website, BeEzratHashem.org. You can also donate through YouTube or Facebook and Of course, you could send checks, wires, and so on. And anyone that wants to fulfill the mitzvot of Purim with us to help us feed and help more people in Israel during this Purim, then you could also do that on the website and the campaign page that we have. Thank you very much, and BeEzrat HaShem, we'll learn again soon. Kol Tuv.
I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend. We did it. AI Rabbi is here. It's an AI model that is based on kosher Torah sources, 30 different languages that are available to you. So if you want to ask it in Spanish, in Chinese, Portuguese, whatever you want to do, it's available for you. Can you tell me about Rabbi Akiva? So it's time-stamped to the shiur. You press this green button, AI Rabbi on your WhatsApp.
You'll have the ability to ask questions at will. You'll be provided sources, and most importantly, you'll be able to know the truth and be able to rely on the sources.